Vincent Cade had built an empire on fear, precision, and control. He knew every threat before it materialized, every weakness before it could be exploited. For 18 months, his secretary sat 3 feet from his office door, quiet, forgettable, utterly beneath his notice. Then he made a joke, a careless invitation to a dinner where billion-dollar deals were brokered and rivalries turned lethal. He expected her to panic, to decline, to remember her place. Instead, Ilara Voss looked him in the eye and said, yes. That single word would unravel everything he thought he knew about power. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Vincent Cade's penthouse office like it had a personal grudge. 43 stories above the city, the storm was just white noise, distant and manageable, the way Vincent preferred everything in his life. He stood at the glass, hands in his pockets, watching lightning fracture the sky over the harbor. Behind him, his office hummed with the quiet efficiency of wealth. Italian leather, dark wood, air that smelled faintly of bergamot and old money. On his desk, 3 phones sat in a precise row. Only one had rung in the past week. That was by design. Mr. Cade. The voice came from the doorway, soft, neutral, easy to ignore. Vincent didn't turn around. The quarterly reports are on your desk. I flagged the discrepancies in the Philadelphia accounts. Transportation manifests are cross-referenced with the ledger exceptions you requested. He grunted. Ilara Voss had been his executive secretary for 18 months. In that time, she'd spoken maybe 300 words directly to him. She appeared when summoned, delivered what was needed, and vanished. She wore gray, sometimes navy. Her hair was always pulled back. She had a face that somehow managed to be both present and completely unmemorable. Perfect. Vincent had built his empire on invisibility, his own and others. The legitimate businesses were spotless. The rest existed in shadows, moved by people whose names appeared nowhere, whose faces security cameras never quite captured. Ilara fit that world beautifully by simply not registering as part of it. Anything else? She asked. No. The door clicked shut. Vincent returned to the window. Below, the city sprawled like a game board. He controlled more pieces than most people knew existed: port operations, construction contracts, union negotiations that somehow always tilted his direction. The mayor's chief of staff owed him 3 favors. The police commissioner's daughter had her college tuition handled through a scholarship Vincent's foundation provided. Everything connected, everything balanced. His phone buzzed, the middle one. He glanced at the screen. Castellano confirmed for Friday. Wants to bring his nephew. Vincent's jaw tightened. Marcus Castellano ran the Eastern distribution networks, moved more product through legitimate shipping channels than anyone else in the region. Smart, ruthless, paranoid. The nephew was new, some Wharton graduate who thought an MBA meant he understood how the real world worked. Friday's dinner was supposed to be intimate. 6 men. The kind of evening where a handshake meant more than a contract, where the wrong word could shift territories or end careers. Vincent had spent 3 weeks orchestrating the seating arrangement alone. He typed back, "Fine, 7 spots." Then he stopped, stared at the screen. An idea formed, petty, childish, utterly unlike him. He blamed the rain, the headache building behind his eyes, the faint irritation that Castellano thought he could dictate terms. Vincent walked to his office door and opened it. The outer office was dark except for one desk lamp. Ilara sat behind her computer, fingers moving across the keyboard with mechanical precision. She didn't look up. "Miss Voss." Now she did. Her eyes were brown, he noticed for perhaps the first time. Not warm brown, just brown. "Sir?" "Friday evening. I'm hosting a private dinner at Aurelius, 7 o'clock. She reached for her tablet, already pulling up his calendar. "I have that blocked. Shall I confirm the arrangements with—" "I want you there." Her fingers stopped. For exactly 2 seconds, she went completely still. Then she looked up at him, and Vincent felt something he couldn't quite name. Not confusion. Not fear. Something else. "I'm sorry?" "The dinner, Friday. I want you to attend." Ilara set down the tablet with deliberate care. "Mr. Cade, I don't think I understand." "It's not complicated. 7 o'clock. Cocktails at 7:30, dinner at 8. Dress accordingly. He turned back toward his office, already losing interest in the joke. By tomorrow, she'd have some excuse prepared. Personal obligation, prior commitment. The polite exit ramp he'd unintentionally provided. All right. Vincent stopped, turned back. What? I said all right. Alara's expression hadn't changed. Should I arrange my own transportation, or will you be sending a car? He stared at her. The joke had been the invitation. Her acceptance was supposed to be impossible, like asking a chess piece to move itself. You're serious? You invited me to a business dinner. I'm accepting. She picked up her tablet again. I assume the dress code is formal. I'll need the guest list to prepare appropriate talking points. Talking points? Vincent heard his own voice from somewhere far away. Miss Voss, do you understand what kind of dinner this is? I work for you, Mr. Cade. I imagine I have some idea of what your business dinners entail. She met his eyes again, and for the first time in 18 months, Vincent actually looked at her, really looked. She wasn't beautiful, wasn't ugly. She was aggressively average in a way that suddenly seemed deliberate, but her eyes didn't waver, didn't drop. The guest list, he said slowly, includes Marcus Castellano, James Vieri, and Anton Volkov. I know who they are. Do you? Mr. Castellano controls your Eastern shipping operations. Mr. Vieri handles legal consultation for your construction subsidiaries and has connections to 3 city council members. Mr. Volkov represents your interests in the waterfront development projects. She paused. I process your correspondence, Mr. Cade. I'm not illiterate. Vincent felt something crack in his understanding of the world. Small, hairline, barely noticeable. And you still want to attend? You invited me. She said it like it was obvious. Unless you're rescinding the invitation? He should. Should laugh it off, close the door, forget the whole thing. Instead, he heard himself say, I'll send a car, 6:30. Thank you. Vincent returned to his office and closed the door. He stood there for a full minute, staring at nothing. Then he called Marcus Castellano. Yeah? Castellano's voice was gravel and cigarettes. Friday, change of plans. 8 spots, not 7. Who's the extra? My secretary. Silence. Then, is this some kind of joke? No. Cade, what the hell are you playing at? This is a serious dinner. We're talking about the Hutchinson contracts, the Port Authority negotiations. I'm aware of the agenda. Then why are you bringing your goddamn secretary? Vincent looked at the closed door. Call it a test. A test of what? Adaptability, Vincent said, and hung up. He immediately regretted it, regretted all of it. But the wheels were in motion now, and Vincent Cade didn't backtrack, didn't show uncertainty. By Wednesday, the entire organization knew something strange was happening. Vincent felt it in the way his phone stayed quiet, the way meetings ended 30 seconds earlier than usual. His people were waiting to see if their boss had lost his mind. Thursday afternoon, his head of security appeared in his office doorway. Derek Chen had been with Vincent for 9 years. Ex-military, ex-private contractor, the kind of man who could disappear a problem and file the paperwork in triplicate. We need to talk about tomorrow night, Derek said. No, we don't. Boss, with respect, yes we do. You're bringing a civilian to a meeting with Miss Voss isn't a civilian. She's my employee. She's a secretary. And? Derek stepped inside and closed the door. And Volkov's going to eat her alive. Castellano's nephew is going to hit on her. Vieri's going to assume she's there for entertainment, and we both know what that means. So protect her. From what? Conversation? This isn't a security problem, it's a… Derek stopped. What are you doing? I don't know, Vincent admitted. It was the first true thing he'd said in days. Derek studied him. You know she's going to humiliate herself. Probably. And that reflects on you. I'm aware. Then why? Because I want to see what happens, Vincent snapped. Because I'm curious. Is that allowed? Derek left without another word. That night, Vincent barely slept. He kept picturing Alara showing up in something inappropriate, sitting in terrified silence while men who bought and sold city blocks debated shipping routes. He imagined her making some catastrophic etiquette error, reaching for the wrong fork, laughing at the wrong moment. He imagined having to explain to Marcus Castellano why he'd wasted everyone's time with a prank that had gotten out of hand. By Friday afternoon, Vincent had convinced himself she wouldn't show, would call in sick, would finally demonstrate the common sense she'd inexplicably lacked on Monday. At 5 o'clock, Ilara appeared in his doorway. "I'm leaving early to prepare for this evening," she said. "Unless you need anything else?" She looked exactly the same as always. Gray suit, hair back, no makeup he could detect. "You're really going through with this," Vincent said. "You invited me." "I could uninvite you." "Could you?" Something flickered in her expression. Not quite a smile, not quite a challenge. "Have a good evening, Mr. Cade. I'll see you at 7. Vincent arrived at Aurelius at 6:45. The restaurant occupied the top floor of a building Vincent owned but didn't advertise owning. The entire space had been cleared for the evening. One table, set for 8, positioned by the windows overlooking the river. Marcus Castellano was already there, smoking a cigar on the balcony despite the cold. He was 60, built like a dock worker, with eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. "This better be worth it," he said when Vincent approached. "It will be." "Your secretary." Castellano shook his head. "I've been in this business 30 years. I've seen a lot of stupid moves. This might be top 5. I appreciate your confidence." James Vieri arrived next. 70, silver-haired, 3-piece suit, the kind of lawyer who made problems evaporate through sheer force of billable hours and strategic relationships. He greeted Vincent with a handshake that lasted exactly the appropriate length. "Marcus tells me we have an unexpected guest this evening," Vieri said. "My secretary, Miss Voss." "How interesting." Vieri's smile didn't move. "I look forward to meeting her." Anton Volkov came at 7 sharp because Volkov was never early or late. He was 52, Moscow-born, educated at Oxford, spoke 5 languages, and had the kind of money that didn't need to announce itself. He moved like a ballet dancer, all controlled grace and potential violence. "Vincent." They shook hands. "I hear you're introducing new elements to our gathering, testing boundaries." "Boundaries," Volkov smiled. "Yes, we all need our hobbies." Castellano's nephew arrived drunk. Not falling down drunk, but enough that his laugh was too loud and his handshake too aggressive. His name was Thomas. He wore a suit that cost more than most people's cars and a watch that cost more than most people's houses. "Mr. Cade, honor to finally meet you, sir. My uncle's told me so much." "Has he?" Vincent extracted his hand. "Welcome." The last 2 guests were Robert Chen, no relation to Derek, who handled Vincent's overseas manufacturing connections, and Patricia Gaines, who ran the political lobbying arm through 12 shell corporations and a nonprofit foundation. 7 o'clock came. 7:15. 7:20. Vincent felt vindication and disappointment in equal measure. She hadn't come. Of course she hadn't come. The joke was over. "Shall we begin?" Vieri suggested. Vincent was about to agree when the elevator chimed. The doors opened. Ilara Voss stepped out. Vincent's first thought was that he'd been wrong about her being unmemorable. His second thought was that he'd been wrong about everything. She wore black, simple, elegant, perfectly tailored. Her hair was still back, but deliberately so now, revealing a face that suddenly had cheekbones and a jawline and eyes that looked darker, more intelligent. She moved across the room like she'd been here 1,000 times, like she owned the space and was graciously allowing them to occupy it. "Good evening," she said. "I apologize for my tardiness. The traffic was worse than anticipated." She wasn't nervous, wasn't hesitant, wasn't anything Vincent had expected. Marcus Castellano stared. Thomas's mouth actually fell open. Volkov's expression shifted into something that might have been interest or might have been threat assessment. Vincent found his voice. "Miss Voss, allow me to introduce Mr. Castellano. A pleasure." She extended her hand. Marcus took it automatically. "I've read extensively about your shipping operations. The efficiency improvements you implemented in the Philadelphia routes last quarter were impressive." Marcus blinked. "You read about shipping logistics? I find supply chain optimization fascinating. The way you reduced transit times by 17% while maintaining cargo security was elegant." She turned. "Mr. Vieri, Your work on the Hutchinson zoning appeals was masterful. I particularly admired how you leveraged the environmental impact studies to delay the opposition's timeline. Vieri's smile became genuine. You follow zoning law? I follow everything relevant to Mr. Cade's interests, which makes your work very relevant indeed. She moved to Volkov. Mr. Volkov, I've wanted to meet you for some time. Your family's history in the aluminum trade is remarkable. 3 generations building an empire from a single smelting plant in Novosibirsk. Volkov's eyes narrowed. Most people don't know where my family is from. Most people don't pay attention. She smiled, small, controlled, devastatingly effective. I do. Vincent watched this happen. Watched Alara dismantle 18 months of invisibility with surgical precision. She greeted Patricia Gaines with a comment about campaign finance reform. She complimented Robert Chen's handling of the Taiwan manufacturing contracts. She even managed to make Thomas feel important by asking about his thesis on emerging market derivatives. They sat. Dinner was served. And Vincent realized he'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. He'd thought bringing Alara was a joke, a way to see her flail, to confirm his assumptions, to reestablish the natural order. Instead, he'd invited a predator to the table and somehow missed noticing she had teeth. The conversation flowed. Wine was poured. Castellano started talking about the Hutchinson contracts, $20 million development deal, union complications, permit issues, the usual labyrinth of corruption and negotiation. The problem, Marcus said, is the permits are tied up in city council. We need 3 votes to push it through, but Wilson and Tate are being difficult. They want more money, Patricia said. Same as always. We've already paid them enough to buy a goddamn yacht. Alara set down her wine glass. The movement was subtle, but somehow it drew attention. If I may, she said quietly. The table went silent. Wilson's daughter is graduating from Providence College in May. She's applied to 7 graduate programs. All rejections so far. Alara looked at Patricia. Your foundation funds educational grants, doesn't it? Patricia's eyes widened slightly. Yes. A full scholarship to Columbia's public policy program would be quite prestigious, life-changing even. I imagine Councilman Wilson would be very grateful to whoever made that happen. She paused. Particularly if that same someone happened to mention concerns about the Hutchinson project timeline during a casual conversation. Marcus stared at her. How the hell do you know about Wilson's daughter? I read the society pages. She was featured in a very sweet article about first-generation college students last month. Alara smiled. It mentioned her graduate school ambitions. And you just remembered that? I remember everything relevant to Mr. Cade's interests. Vincent felt something shift in the room. The men at this table were predators. They recognized another predator when they saw one, and Alara had just shown her teeth without raising her voice or breaking her smile. Volkov leaned forward. Miss Voss, you've worked for Vincent for, 18 months? Yes. And in that time, what exactly have you been doing? My job. Which is? Paying attention. She met his eyes. Someone has to. The implication hung there. Vincent felt it like a slap. She'd just suggested that while they'd all been playing their power games, she'd been building a map of the actual battlefield. I like her, Volkov announced. Vincent, where did you find this creature? She applied through the normal channels, Vincent said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Nothing about this woman is normal. Volkov raised his glass. To Miss Voss, may she continue to be underestimated by idiots. They drank. Thomas laughed too loud. The conversation moved on. But Vincent couldn't move on. He watched Alara navigate the evening like she'd been trained for it. She knew when to speak and when to listen. She deflected Thomas's clumsy flirting with surgical precision. She engaged Vieri in a discussion about corporate liability law that actually made the old lawyer laugh. And she never, not once, looked at Vincent for approval or guidance. Around 10, Marcus pulled Vincent aside on the balcony. All right, he said. What's the play here? There's no play. Bullshit. You don't bring someone like that to a dinner like this without a reason. Is she your mistress? Your protege? Some kind of test for us? She's my secretary. No. Marcus lit a fresh cigar. She's not. I don't know what she is, but she's not your goddamn secretary. Secretaries don't memorize shipping logistics and city council voting patterns for fun. Vincent had no answer, because Marcus was right. Inside, Alara was talking to Volkov about Russian literature, in the original Russian. When did you learn Russian? Vincent heard Volkov ask. University. I found Dostoevsky more rewarding in the original language. You read Crime and Punishment in Russian? And The Brothers Karamazov. And The Idiot. Though I found Notes from Underground more philosophically interesting personally. Volkov laughed, actually laughed. Vincent, I'm stealing your secretary. Well, you can't afford her, Vincent said, and immediately wondered if that was true. The dinner wound down around 11. Guests began leaving, each one making a point of saying goodbye to Alara specifically. Thomas tried one more time to get her number and received a smile that could have frozen nitrogen. By 11:30, only Vincent and Alara remained. They stood by the windows looking out at the city. The rain had stopped. Everything looked clean and new and temporary. That, Vincent said, finally, was not what I expected. What did you expect? Honestly, I expected you to be terrified, to sit in silence or make embarrassing small talk, to confirm that you were exactly what you appeared to be. And what do I appear to be? I don't know anymore. Alara turned to face him. In the low light, her eyes looked almost black. You invited me as a joke. A test, maybe. You wanted to watch me fail in front of people who matter to you. Wanted to confirm your assumptions about who I am and where I belong. Yes. That was cruel. Yes, Vincent agreed. It was. Why did you do it? He could have lied, should have lied. Instead, because I was bored, because Castellano annoyed me, because I wanted to see what would happen when I dropped something ordinary into an extraordinary situation. I'm not ordinary. I'm beginning to understand that. Alara picked up her clutch. Thank you for the evening, Mr. Cade. It was illuminating. Will you still be at your desk on Monday? She paused at the elevator. Where else would I be? I don't know. After tonight, I don't know anything about you. Good, Alara said. The elevator doors opened. That's exactly where I want you. She stepped inside. The doors closed. Vincent stood alone in the empty restaurant, surrounded by the wreckage of his assumptions, and realized he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. He'd noticed Alara Voss, and she'd been waiting 18 months for him to do exactly that. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of weather that made the city look like it was still deciding whether to wake up or give up entirely. Vincent reached his office at 6:30, earlier than usual, though he wouldn't admit why, even to himself. The outer office was dark, empty. Alara's desk sat pristine and abandoned, her computer monitor black, her chair tucked in with geometric precision. Vincent felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest. Relief, maybe. Or disappointment. He couldn't tell anymore. He made it to his desk, opened his laptop, and tried to pretend Friday night hadn't happened. Tried to pretend he hadn't spent the entire weekend replaying conversations, analyzing glances, wondering what the hell he'd actually invited into his carefully controlled world. At 7:58, the outer office lights turned on. Vincent looked up. Through the glass wall, he watched Alara hang her coat, settle into her chair, and power on her computer. Gray suit, hair back, like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't casually demolished the assumptions of 6 extremely dangerous men while discussing Dostoevsky in Russian. His phone buzzed. A message appeared on his screen. Morning briefing materials are ready. Flag on the Philadelphia accounts remains unresolved. You have a 10 o'clock with the development team and lunch with Councilman Perry at 1. Professional, distant, exactly what it had always been. Vincent stared at the message for a full minute. Then he got up, walked to his door, and opened it. Miss Voss. She looked up. Sir? My office. Now. Something flickered across her face, too quick to read. She stood, grabbed her tablet, and followed him inside. Vincent closed the door. They stood there. The silence stretched. Did you need something, Mr. Cade? An explanation. Of what? Friday night. All of it. Who the hell are you? Alara set her tablet on the edge of his desk. I'm your secretary. I've been your secretary for 18 months. Nothing about that has changed. Everything about that has changed. You speak Russian. You memorize shipping logistics and city council voting patterns. You walked into a room full of people who terrify most civilians and acted like you belonged there. I prepared for the evening you invited me to. That's called professionalism. No. Vincent moved closer. That's called something else. Training, maybe. Background I didn't know about. A whole life I somehow missed noticing. You didn't miss it. You chose not to see it. Her voice stayed level, but there was an edge now, sharp and deliberate. For 18 months, I've been 3 feet from your office. I've processed every piece of correspondence, attended every meeting, prepared every briefing, and you looked through me like I was part of the furniture, because you made yourself invisible. Did I? Or did you just assume that someone in my position couldn't possibly be worth your attention? The words hit harder than they should have. Vincent felt his jaw tighten. You're angry. I'm honest. There's a difference. Alara picked up her tablet. Is there anything else, Mr. Cade? Your 10 o'clock prep needs review. Yes, there's something else. Sit down. She hesitated. For the first time since Friday, Vincent saw actual uncertainty cross her face. But she sat. Vincent leaned against his desk, arms crossed. I underestimated you, clearly. So let's start over. Who are you really? Alara Voss, 29, graduate degree in international relations from Georgetown, fluent in Russian, French, and Mandarin. Previous work experience includes 2 years at a consulting firm and 6 months at a nonprofit before I came here. She met his eyes, all of which was in the background check your security team ran before hiring me. Derek never mentioned languages. He mentioned what you asked about, criminal history, financial problems, security risks. You didn't ask about education or skills beyond typing speed and calendar management. Vincent felt heat rise in his face. She was right. He'd approved her hiring based on a 2-paragraph summary and Derek's assessment that she was clean and competent. Why take a secretary position? With those credentials, you could have what? Worked at another consulting firm? Another nonprofit? Alara's voice carried something bitter now. I wanted to understand how power actually works, not the theory they teach in seminars, the real thing. And you, Mr. Cade, have real power. So this was research, career development. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Vincent didn't have an answer. Or rather, he had several answers and none of them were acceptable. Because he needed to know if Friday night was performance or reality. Because she'd gotten under his skin in a way that felt dangerous. Because for the first time in years, someone had surprised him, and he couldn't predict what came next. I don't like surprises, he said finally. Then you should pay better attention. Alara stood. Will that be all? No. I want you in the afternoon development meeting. She stopped halfway to the door. That's senior leadership only. It was senior leadership only. Now it includes you. Why? Because you clearly understand the projects better than I thought. Because those meetings are useless political theater, and I want to see what happens when someone competent is in the room. He paused. Because I'm curious what else I've been missing. Alara turned back. Her expression was unreadable. All right. That's it? What would you like me to say? I don't know. Thank you? Some acknowledgement that this is unusual? You're Vincent Cade. Everything about you is unusual. She tilted her head slightly. But if it makes you feel better, thank you for the opportunity, sir. I'll prepare accordingly. The formality felt like mockery. Vincent couldn't tell if that was intentional. She left. The door clicked shut. Vincent returned to his desk and tried to work, but his concentration was shot. He kept glancing at the outer office, watching Alara type, answer calls, process the endless flow of information that kept his empire running. She'd been doing this for 18 months. How much did she actually know? At 9:45, Derek appeared. We need to talk about your secretary, he said without preamble. What about her? I've been getting calls since Saturday. Castellano, Volkov, even Vieri. Everyone wants to know who she is, where she came from, what your play is. There's no play. Then what was Friday night? A mistake. Vincent closed his laptop. Or maybe not. I haven't decided yet. Derek pulled a file from under his arm and dropped it on the desk. I ran a deeper background check. Went back further. Looked harder. Vincent opened the file. Personnel records, academic transcripts, employment history. Nothing remarkable. Georgetown, good grades, unremarkable career path. References checked out. No criminal record, no suspicious gaps. This tells me nothing, Vincent said. Exactly. It's too clean. Clean is good. Clean is suspicious. Nobody's this clean. No debt, no drama, no digital footprint beyond the basics. Her social media is minimal. Her previous employers give perfect references, but no specific details. Even her apartment rental history is boring. Maybe she's just boring. You saw her Friday night. Does she seem boring to you? Vincent closed the file. What are you saying? I'm saying something doesn't add up. I'm saying you should be careful. Careful of what? My secretary might be competent? Your secretary might be something else entirely. Derek leaned forward. Boss, I've been doing this a long time. I know what trained looks like. The way she moved through that dinner, the information she had ready, the way she played every person at that table, that's not natural talent. That's training. Training for what? That's what worries me. Vincent wanted to dismiss it, wanted to tell Derek he was being paranoid. But Derek wasn't paranoid. He was careful, thorough, the kind of careful that had kept Vincent alive and free for 9 years. Keep digging, Vincent said, quietly. Already am. The development meeting started at 10. Vincent's senior team filed in, construction managers, financial officers, legal counsel, project coordinators. 12 people who collectively managed $300 million in active projects. Ilara entered last, tablet in hand, and took a seat in the back corner. The room noticed. Heads turned. David Walsh, the chief financial officer, frowned at Vincent with obvious confusion. Miss Voss will be observing, Vincent announced. Continue. They continued, but the energy had shifted. People were self-conscious now, aware of the stranger taking notes. The usual posturing felt more obvious, the usual excuses more hollow. 40 minutes in, they reached the Riverside project, luxury condos on the waterfront, 2 years behind schedule, $15 million over budget. The project manager, a man named Collins, launched into his standard explanation about permit delays and contractor issues. Vincent had heard it before. Everyone had heard it before. It was background noise, the kind of expensive failure that got absorbed into the larger machine. The real problem, Collins was saying, is the environmental impact review. The state keeps adding requirements. The real problem, Ilara said quietly, is that you're paying for work that isn't being done. The room went silent. Collins turned. Excuse me? Invoice 4782-B, submitted 3 weeks ago for concrete foundation work on the North Tower, paid in full. But the inspection reports show no foundation work was completed during that period. She scrolled through her tablet. Same pattern on invoices 4791, 4803, and 4817. You're approving payments for phantom work. Collins's face went red. Those invoices were verified. By whom? By my team. Your team that includes your brother-in-law who owns the contracting company receiving the payments? Ilara looked up. I'm not accusing anyone of fraud. I'm simply noting a pattern that might warrant review. Vincent felt something electric move through him. She'd just casually exposed what was probably a $6 million embezzlement scheme without raising her voice or making a direct accusation. Mr. Cade, Collins stammered, I can explain later. Vincent's voice cut through the room like a knife. Miss Voss, continue. She did. For the next 20 minutes, Ilara systematically dismantled every bullshit excuse, every inflated timeline, every hidden inefficiency. She had numbers memorized. She quoted from reports that Vincent had barely skimmed. She connected dots that no one else had bothered to look for. By the time the meeting ended, Collins had been fired. 2 other project managers were on notice, and Vincent's senior team looked like they'd survived a natural disaster. David Walsh approached as people filed out. Where the hell did you find her? He asked quietly. She's been here for 18 months. Doing what? Apparently. Paying attention while the rest of us played politics. Walsh shook his head. She just saved you maybe $20 million in waste and fraud. I know. You going to promote her? Vincent watched Ilara gathering her things, completely unfazed by the chaos she'd created. I'm still deciding what to do with her. That afternoon, Vincent had lunch with Councilman Perry at an Italian place downtown that served as neutral territory for people who needed to have conversations that never happened. Perry was 65, third-term city council, controlled 4 key votes, and had the kind of face that looked honest on camera and corrupt everywhere else. "Vincent, good to see you." Perry's handshake was practiced, his smile automatic. "How's business?" "Complicated? You?" "Same. This Hutchinson development is becoming a headache. A lot of pressure from constituents about displacement, gentrification, the usual complaints." They ordered, made small talk, danced around the real conversation. Finally, Perry leaned forward. "Look, I'll be straight with you. Wilson and Tate are dug in. They're making noise about blocking the permits unless there's more community investment, whatever that means." "What do they actually want?" "Money, same as always. But they're being smarter about it now, asking for things that look good publicly. Scholarships, community centers, job training programs." Vincent thought about what Alara had said at the dinner. Wilson's daughter, Columbia's public policy program. "What if I told you I could handle Wilson?" Vincent said. Perry raised an eyebrow. "How? Does it matter?" "Depends on what kind of handling we're talking about. The legal kind. The kind that makes everyone look good and gets what we need." Perry studied him. "You've got something specific in mind." "I might. Give me a week." Vincent returned to the office at 3. Alara was at her desk, working through what looked like a mountain of correspondence. "Miss Voss." "A moment." She followed him into his office. "Wilson's daughter," Vincent said. "You mentioned she'd been rejected from graduate programs. How certain are you about that?" "Very certain. She posted about it on social media. 7 applications, 7 rejections. She's currently waiting tables and living at home." "Can your information be verified?" "Easily. Her LinkedIn is public." Vincent pulled out his phone and called Patricia Gaines. "Patricia, that scholarship idea from Friday night. How fast can you make it happen?" "For Wilson's daughter, 48 hours if we move quickly. Columbia will need persuading, but we have connections there." "Do it. Full ride. Make it look legitimate because it is legitimate. The girl earned good grades. She deserves the opportunity." "And Wilson?" "Once his daughter's accepted, you have a casual conversation about community investment and the Hutchinson timeline. Very casual." "Understood." Patricia paused. "Vincent, where did you find that secretary of yours? She's terrifying." "I'm starting to wonder that myself." He hung up and looked at Alara. "You might have just unlocked a $20 million project." I suggested a scholarship for a deserving student. What you do with that is your business. Don't play modest. You knew exactly what you were doing." "Did I?" She met his eyes. "Or maybe I just believe in giving opportunities to people who've been overlooked. People who are competent but invisible because no one bothers to actually see them." The implication landed like a punch. Vincent felt his throat tighten. "Is that what this is about? Some kind of revenge for being underestimated?" "Revenge implies I'm angry." "I'm not angry, Mr. Cade. I'm just done being invisible." Alara moved toward the door. "Will there be anything else?" "Yes, dinner, tonight." She stopped. "Excuse me?" "Dinner, you and me. Not a joke this time, not a test. Actual dinner where we have an actual conversation." "Why?" "Because I want to understand who you are. Because you've managed to become essential to my operation in the span of 72 hours, and I need to know if that's dangerous." He paused. "Because I'm asking." Alara turned back. Her expression was complicated, calculating, curious, something else he couldn't name. "Where?" she asked finally. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere we can actually talk." "Not Aurelius." "No, somewhere without an audience." She considered this. "All right, but I choose the place." "Why?" "Because I don't trust your definition of quiet, and because if we're going to have an actual conversation, it should be on neutral ground." Vincent felt himself smile despite everything. "Fine. Where?" "There's a Vietnamese place in Chinatown. Family run, no pretension, actually good food. 8 o'clock. "How do you know about Vietnamese restaurants in Chinatown?" "I eat lunch, Mr. Cade. I have a life outside this office, even if you never noticed." She left. Vincent stood there, feeling off balance and oddly energized. Like he'd agreed to something more significant than dinner without quite understanding what. Derek appeared in the doorway 10 minutes later. "Just got something interesting," he said. "Alara Voss. 6 years ago, she spent 14 months working at an NGO in Southeast Asia. Human rights documentation, refugee assistance." So? So the NGO she worked for is known to be a front for intelligence gathering. Not officially, but everyone in that world knows what they really are. Vincent felt cold spread through his chest. "You're saying she's intelligence?" "I'm saying it's possible. The timeline fits, the skill set fits, the fact that she's impossibly clean fits." Derek pulled up something on his phone. Also found this. Photo from a conference in Geneva 8 years ago. International Security Symposium. He showed Vincent the screen. A group photo, maybe 50 people. Derek zoomed in on one face in the back row. Alara. Younger, different hair, but definitely her. "That conference was invitation only," Derek said. "Attended primarily by intelligence officers, policy analysts, and military strategists. Not exactly standard fare for graduate students." Vincent stared at the photo. "This doesn't prove anything." "No, but it raises questions, good questions." Derek pocketed his phone. "You having dinner with her tonight?" "How did you eat?" "I pay attention. It's my job." Derek's expression was serious. "Boss, if she's what I think she might be, you need to be very careful. People like that don't take secretary positions for career development. They do it for access." "Access to what?" "You. Your operation. Everything you've built." Derek moved toward the door. "Just watch what you say tonight. And maybe don't fall in love with her." "I'm not falling in love with anyone." "Good. Keep it that way." Vincent spent the afternoon trying to work and failing. His mind kept circling back to the photo, to Derek's warnings, to the look on Alara's face when she'd said, "I'm just done being invisible." At 7:30, he left the office. Alara had already gone, leaving his desk organized and his schedule updated for tomorrow. Professional to the end. The Vietnamese restaurant was exactly what she'd described. Small, loud, packed with families and students. Vincent felt conspicuous in his suit, but Alara had somehow found a corner table in the back where they could talk without shouting. She'd changed. Jeans, simple sweater, hair down for the first time he could remember. She looked younger, more real. "You're late," she said when he arrived. "Traffic." "You're Vincent Cade. You don't get stuck in traffic. You probably own half the roads." "Only a quarter." He sat down. "I said, this place is not what you're used to?" "I was going to say crowded. That's because the food is actually good, not just expensive." She pushed a menu toward him. "The pho is excellent. So is the banh mi. Avoid the spring rolls unless you like them oily." They ordered. The server brought tea. Vincent poured for both of them, a gesture that felt oddly intimate. "So," Alara said, "what do you want to know?" "Everything. Start anywhere." "That's not a specific question." "Fine. Why did you really take this job?" She sipped her tea. "I told you. I wanted to understand power." "That's not an answer. That's a talking point." "Maybe I'm just very interested in organizational dynamics." "Maybe you're lying." Alara smiled, actually smiled, genuine and amused. "Everyone lies, Mr. Cade. You of all people should know that." "Call me Vincent. If we're doing this, use my name." "All right, Vincent." She let the name sit there between them. "Why does it matter why I took the job?" "I've been good at it, better than you realized." "Because good secretaries don't speak 3 languages and attend international security conferences." Her smile disappeared. "You've been checking up on me." "Derek has." "It's his job." "And what did he find?" "Geneva, 8 years ago. A conference you had no business attending unless you were something other than a graduate student." Alara set down her cup carefully. "That was a long time ago." "That's not a denial." "No, it's not." The food arrived. They ate in silence for a moment. The pho was excellent, complex, rich, nothing like the overpriced fusion places Vincent usually frequented. "I'm not going to explain my entire life to you," Alara said, finally. "Not because I'm hiding something, but because you haven't earned that trust yet." "Fair enough. Then tell me this. Are you a threat to me?" "Define threat. Are you law enforcement? Intelligence? Someone's plant sent to gather information? She looked at him for a long moment. If I were, would I tell you? I don't know. That's the problem. Vincent, I've been in your office for 18 months. If I were trying to destroy you, I've had plenty of opportunities. I process your correspondence. I know about Philadelphia, about the Hutchinson contracts, about every gray area deal you've touched in the past year and a half. She leaned forward. If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be hurt. That's not reassuring. It's honest, which is more than most people give you. Vincent set down his chopsticks. Then what do you want? From you? Nothing you're not willing to give. That's cryptic. It's true. Alara pushed her bowl aside. You think everyone wants something from you. Money, power, protection, access. And you're probably right. But you know what I've learned in 18 months? You're lonely. Oh, the word hit harder than any accusation could have. I'm not... You are. You surround yourself with people who fear you or need you, but no one actually sees you. No one challenges you. Derek's loyal, but he's an employee. Castellano and the others? They're business partners. Everyone keeps their distance because that's how you've designed it. She met his eyes. I'm tired of being invisible. You're tired of being alone. Maybe we can help each other. Vincent felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd kept locked for years. And if you're lying, if this is all manipulation, then you'll figure it out eventually. You're smart enough. She smiled again, softer this time. But I'm not lying. Not about this. They finished dinner, walked out into the cold night. The city hummed around them, indifferent and endless. Thank you, Vincent said, for being honest, or for pretending to be honest convincingly enough that it doesn't matter. You're welcome. Or you're being paranoid. Same result either way. He laughed. Actually laughed. When was the last time that happened? Can I ask you something? Alara said. Now you want permission? Why did you really invite me to that dinner? The real reason. Vincent considered lying, considered deflecting. Instead, because I was bored, because everything felt predictable, and I wanted to break something just to see what would happen. And I broke the wrong thing, or maybe the right thing. I still can't tell. Alara stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle, not the heavy designer fragrances he was used to. I should go, she said. Where do you live? Why? I'll have my driver take you home. I can take the subway. It's late. Vincent, I've been taking the subway at midnight for 18 months. I think I'll survive. But she let him call the car anyway. They waited in comfortable silence until it arrived. See you tomorrow, she said. Miss Voss, Alara. Her first name felt strange in his mouth. Whatever you are, whoever you really are, I'm glad you showed up Friday night. She paused with one hand on the car door. So am I. The car pulled away. Vincent stood on the sidewalk watching taillights disappear, feeling like he'd just started something he couldn't stop and wasn't sure he wanted to. His phone buzzed. Derek. Found something else. We need to talk. Tonight. Vincent called a car and headed to Derek's apartment in the warehouse district, a converted loft that cost more than most houses but looked like a bunker. Derek had files spread across his dining table, photos, documents, printouts. This better be good, Vincent said. It's nearly midnight. It's not good. It's complicated. Derek pulled up a photo. Alara Voss, real name, real person, everything checks out. But here's what doesn't. She disappeared for 8 months, 4 years ago. Disappeared how? No credit card use, no social media, no employment records. She essentially fell off the grid, then reappeared like nothing happened. Maybe she was traveling. Maybe. Or maybe she was being trained. Officially. Derek showed him another document. Also found a sealed court record from 6 years ago. I can't access it, but its existence means she was involved in something that required legal protection or classification. Vincent felt the weight of it settling over him. You think she's federal? I think she might have been federal. Past tense. The timing doesn't work for her to be active now. But I think she was something, and now she's something else, and we don't know what that something else is. So what do I do? Honestly, cut her loose. Too much risk, too many questions. I can't. Why not? Vincent didn't answer. Couldn't answer, because the truth was he didn't want to. because for the first time in years, someone made him feel something other than the numb calculation that defined his existence. Just be careful, Derek said finally. Whatever this is, it's not going to end well. Vincent went home to his penthouse, poured scotch he didn't drink, and stood at the windows watching the city until dawn. Alara arrived at work at 7:58, gray suit, hair back, like always. But when she walked past his office, she glanced at him through the glass. Just for a second. And Vincent knew with absolute certainty that Derek was right. This wasn't going to end well, but he was going to see it through anyway. 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm that Vincent couldn't quite name. Work continued, deals closed, problems got solved. Money moved through channels that existed in ledgers and nowhere else. But underneath the normal machinery of his empire, something else was happening, something he didn't control. Alara became indispensable in ways that made Derek increasingly nervous and Vincent increasingly reckless. She sat in on meetings that used to be sacred ground. She offered solutions to problems that had been festering for months. The Philadelphia accounts finally got resolved after she noticed a pattern in the shipping manifests that pointed to a dock supervisor skimming product. Vincent's attorneys started calling her directly for case background. Castellano sent her a bottle of wine with a note that said, "For the woman who saved us from Wilson's tantrums." And every night, around 7, when the office cleared out and the city lights started glowing against the dark, they talked. Not about work, about everything else. Vincent learned that she'd grown up in foster care, bounced between 6 families before she aged out at 18. That Georgetown had been a scholarship, her way out, her proof that she could be more than the system expected. That she'd wanted to change things, fix things, make the world make sense through policy and law and careful intervention. "So what happened?" Vincent asked one evening. They were in his office, Chinese takeout containers scattered across the conference table because neither of them had wanted to leave. "I got disillusioned," Alara picked at her lo mein with chopsticks. "Spent 2 years watching good intentions get crushed by bureaucracy and politics. Watched people who actually cared get pushed out by people who cared about career advancement. The NGO work was worse. All these organizations claiming to help, but really just feeding off tragedy for donor money. Sounds like you learned the same lesson I did. Good intentions are expensive and usually pointless." "No, I learned that good intentions without power are pointless. You can't fix anything if you don't understand how the actual machinery works." She looked at him. "That's why I came here. To learn from someone who knows how to make things happen, even if the methods aren't pretty." "I'm not a role model, Alara." "I know. That's not what I'm looking for." "Then what are you looking for?" She set down her chopsticks. "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring that out." The honesty of it hit Vincent harder than any flirtation could have. She wasn't playing games, or if she was, they were more sophisticated than he knew how to counter. He told her things too. About building the business from nothing, about the first time he'd had to make a choice between legal and necessary, about the night he realized he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross, about the loneliness of being the person everyone needed but nobody knew. "You ever regret it?" Alara asked. "The choices you made?" "Every day, and never." Vincent leaned back in his chair. "I regret what it cost. I don't regret surviving." "That's honest." "You make me want to be honest. I'm not sure if that's dangerous or refreshing. Probably both." They were sitting closer now than professional distance allowed. Vincent could see the small scar above her left eyebrow, barely visible, could count the different shades of brown in her eyes. "I should go," Alara said, but she didn't move. "You should," Vincent agreed, and didn't move either. His phone shattered the moment, harsh, insistent. The red one. The phone that only rang for emergencies. Vincent grabbed it. "What?" "We have a problem." Derek's voice was tight. "The warehouse on 5th. Fire department and police are there. Someone called in an anonymous tip about illegal storage." Vincent's blood went cold. The 5th Street warehouse was supposed to be clean, a front operation, legitimate inventory, nothing that would raise flags. "How bad?" "They're searching now. If they find the secondary storage room." "They won't. It's behind a false wall. They'd need specific knowledge of the layout, which someone apparently gave them." Derek's pause was heavy. "Boss, this wasn't random. Someone knew exactly what to say to get a warrant." Vincent looked at Alara. She was watching him, expression neutral, but something in her eyes had changed, sharpened. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said, and hung up. "Problem?" Alara asked quietly. "Nothing I can't handle." Vincent grabbed his coat. "You should go home." "Vincent, now, Ilara, please." She gathered her things without argument, but at the door she stopped. "Whatever this is, be careful." "Always am." "No, you're not. You're reckless and you trust the wrong people." She met his eyes. "Just be careful who you trust right now." Then she was gone, and Vincent was left wondering if that was a warning or a confession. The warehouse was chaos, police cars, fire trucks, investigators swarming like ants. Vincent arrived to find Derek arguing with a detective he recognized, Sarah Chen, Organized Crime Division, smart enough to be dangerous. "Mr. Cade." Chen's smile was professional and cold. "Funny seeing you here. I own the building. Someone called about a fire?" "False alarm, but since we were here, we figured we'd look around. You know how it is." "I know you need a warrant to search my property." She produced one from her jacket. "Already got it. Anonymous tip claimed you were storing hazardous materials in violation of city codes. Judge agreed it warranted a look." Vincent scanned the warrant. It was legitimate, specific enough to be dangerous, vague enough to allow broad search. "Find anything interesting?" he asked. "Not yet, but we're thorough." Chen's eyes were sharp. "You seem nervous, Mr. Cade." "I'm annoyed. There's a difference." She laughed. "Sure there is." Vincent pulled Derek aside while Chen coordinated her team. "How bad?" he asked quietly. "The secondary room is sealed. They'd need jackhammers to find it, and the warrant doesn't cover structural demolition, but someone knew about this location, knew it was worth looking at." "Who?" "That's the question." Derek's expression was grim. "Short list of people who know about the 5th Street operation. Maybe 10 people total. All vetted, all loyal. Or all potentially compromised. Or that." Vincent watched the investigators work. They were professional, systematic, looking for anything that didn't fit. He'd been careful. Everything visible was legitimate. Inventory matched manifests. Permits were current. But the fact that someone had pointed them here at all meant information was leaking. The question was from where? 3 hours later, Chen emerged from the warehouse looking frustrated. "Clean," she admitted. "Cleaner than most legitimate operations, actually. Almost suspiciously clean." "I run a tight ship, Detective." "So it seems." She handed him a card. "If you think of anything that might explain why someone would make a false report about your property, give me a call." "I'll do that." Vincent waited until the last police car pulled away before turning to Derek. "I want to know who made that call." "Already working on it." "But Vincent—" Derek hesitated. "We need to talk about your secretary." "Don't." "I have to. The timing is suspicious. She gets access to your operation? Suddenly we have leaks?" Alara wouldn't. "How do you know? Because you've had a few nice conversations? Because she's smart and pretty and makes you feel less lonely?" Derek's voice was harsh. "You're compromised. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking fine." "Then explain to me why you trust her." Vincent couldn't. Not in any way that made logical sense. "I just do. That's not good enough." "It has to be." Derek shook his head. "You're going to get burned. And when you do, don't say I didn't warn you." Vincent returned to his penthouse at 3 in the morning, exhausted and wired. The city sprawled below, indifferent to his problems. He poured scotch, drank it, poured more. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're being watched, not by who you think. Be smarter." Vincent stared at the message, deleted it, poured more scotch. Sleep didn't come. When dawn finally bled gray light through the windows, Vincent showered, dressed, and went to the office early. Alara arrived at 7:58, exactly on time, always exactly on time. She saw him through the glass, paused, then came into his office without being summoned. "You look terrible," she said. "Thanks." "What happened last night?" "Police searched one of my warehouses. Anonymous tip. Found nothing because there was nothing to find, but someone knew enough to make the call worthwhile." Alara's expression didn't change. "You think it was me?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. It's all over your face." She set her bag down carefully. "Ask me, Vincent. If you want to know, ask me directly. Are you investigating me? No. Are you working with law enforcement? No. Are you the reason the police showed up at my warehouse last night? No. Her voice was steady. But I know who might be. Vincent's pulse jumped. What? Collins, the project manager you fired. He's been making noise, talking to people he shouldn't, angry about being cut loose. He had access to your property records, knew about various locations. Alara pulled out her tablet. I've been tracking his communication since the firing. Nothing definitive, but there are calls to a number registered to a law firm that specializes in whistleblower cases. How the hell do you have access to his phone records? I don't. I have access to his email, which automatically backs up to a cloud service he forgot to change the password on after he left. She showed him the screen. He's been documenting everything he can remember. Locations, timelines, suspicious transactions, building a case. Vincent read through the emails. His stomach dropped. Collins knew enough to be dangerous. Not enough to prove anything serious, but enough to draw attention. Enough to get warrants. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Because I only confirmed it last night, and because I wasn't sure you'd believe me. Alara's eyes were hard. You're not the only one dealing with trust issues. Fair enough. Vincent closed the tablet. What do we do about Collins? Legally? You could sue for breach of confidentiality, but that draws more attention. Illegally? I assume you have options, but I'd rather not know about them. I'm not going to kill him if that's what you're worried about. The thought crossed my mind. I don't kill people, Alara. I ruin them financially and professionally, which is worse. She almost smiled. That's oddly principled. I have a few principles left. Not many, but a few. Vincent ran his hand through his hair. Can you get me everything Collins has? Every document? Every email? Every piece of potential evidence? Already done. It's in a secure folder on your server. Password is your mother's maiden name plus the year you started the company. Vincent stared at her. How do you know my mother's maiden name? I pay attention. You said it once in a meeting 8 months ago when setting up a security question for a bank account. Oh, you remember something I said 8 months ago? I remember everything you say, Vincent. That's my job. She picked up her bag. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. She left. Vincent sat in the silence, feeling the familiar paranoia war with something newer and more dangerous. The possibility that she was exactly what she appeared to be. Competent. Loyal. Someone who saw him clearly and chose to stay anyway. His phone rang. Marcus Castellano. We need to meet, Marcus said without preamble. Today. Private. What's this about? Your secretary. I've been hearing things. What kind of things? The kind that concern me. Noon. The usual place. He hung up before Vincent could respond. The usual place was a private club in the financial district. Old money, older secrets, the kind of establishment where memberships passed through generations, and nobody asked uncomfortable questions about where the money came from. Vincent arrived at 11:50 to find Marcus already there, smoking a cigar in a leather chair that probably cost more than a car. Drink? Marcus offered. It's noon. That's not a no. Vincent accepted a scotch he didn't want and sat down. So, Marcus began. Alara Voss. Where'd she really come from? I told you she applied through normal channels. Right, and I'm the Pope. Marcus leaned forward. Vincent, I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. I know what trained looks like. That woman is trained. Question is, trained by who and for what purpose? She has a background in international relations, some NGO work. Nothing sinister. NGOs. Marcus laughed without humor. You know what those are, right? Cover operations for intelligence agencies. Always have been. You're being paranoid. Am I? Because I made some calls after that dinner. Asked around about Georgetown graduates in her age range with language skills and international experience. Know what I found? What? Nothing. Radio silence. The kind of nothing that means someone scrubbed her presence from professional networks. Marcus tapped ash from his cigar. She's a ghost, Vincent. And ghosts in our world mean one of two things: witness protection or intelligence. Or it means she values her privacy. Nobody values privacy that much. Not unless they're hiding something. Marcus studied him. You sleeping with her? No? But you want to? Vincent didn't answer. That's what I thought. Marcus sighed. Look, I like you. You're smart, you're careful, you don't take stupid risks. But this is a stupid risk. You're letting someone close who you don't actually know, someone who might be playing you. I can handle myself. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look compromised. You look like a man who's thinking with the wrong parts of his anatomy. I appreciate your concern. This isn't concern. This is a warning. Marcus's voice went cold. If she's federal, if she's building a case, it doesn't just affect you, it affects all of us. Our operations are connected. If you go down, you might take the rest of us with you. She's not federal. Prove it. I don't have to prove anything to you. Yes, you do. We're partners. That means we look out for each other. And right now, you're not looking out for yourself. Vincent stood. I hear you. I'll be careful. Careful isn't good enough. Get rid of her. Fire her, pay her off, whatever it takes. But get her away from your operation before she destroys everything you've built. Vincent left without responding. Drove back to the office with Marcus's words echoing in his head. Get rid of her. It was the smart move, the safe move. He couldn't do it. That evening, he asked Alara to stay late. She didn't question it, just settled into the chair across from his desk and waited. Marcus thinks your intelligence, Vincent said bluntly, thinks you're building a case against me, against all of us. Marcus is paranoid. Is he wrong? Alara was quiet for a long moment. I was offered a job once, federal, after the NGO work. They liked my background, my language skills, my ability to blend in and gather information without being noticed. Vincent felt his chest tighten. And I turned them down. Didn't want to spend my life lying to people, building relationships based on ulterior motives. She met his eyes. I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of, Vincent, but I've never been a federal agent, never been anyone's plant. I'm here because I chose to be here. Why should I believe you? Because if I were building a case, I'd have more than enough by now. I've had access to your files, your communications, your entire operation for 18 months. If I were federal, you'd already be in handcuffs. She leaned forward. I'm not your enemy, but I understand why you can't trust that. Then help me trust it. Tell me about the 8 months you disappeared. Tell me about Geneva. Tell me what you're not saying. Alara stood, walked to the window. The city glittered below them, all those lights hiding all those secrets. The 8 months, she said quietly. I was in therapy, inpatient, after the NGO work, after seeing things that broke something in me. I had a breakdown, complete collapse, couldn't function, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop seeing the faces of people I'd tried to help and failed. Her voice cracked slightly. Geneva was a conference I attended as part of my recovery, trying to reconnect with the work that used to matter to me, trying to find purpose again. Vincent moved to stand beside her. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me something important, that good intentions without power are worse than useless. They're cruel. They give people false hope. She looked at him. You don't pretend to be good. You don't offer false hope. You're honest about what you are and what you do. There's something clean about that. There's nothing clean about what I do. Cleaner than the people who pretend otherwise. They stood there in silence, close enough that Vincent could feel the heat from her body, could smell her perfume mixed with coffee and the faint scent of paper. I need to know, he said. Are we doing this? Whatever this is. I don't know what this is. Neither do I. But I need to know if it's real. Alara turned to face him fully. It's real for me. I don't know if that's smart or reckless or completely insane, but it's real. Vincent kissed her. Or she kissed him. Later, he wouldn't be able to remember who moved first. It didn't matter. What mattered was that it felt like falling and flying at the same time. Like making the worst decision and the only decision. Like crossing a line that he'd been circling for weeks without admitting it. When they broke apart, Alara's eyes were dark and serious. This changes everything, she said. I know. Derek's going to have a heart attack. Probably. Marcus will think you've lost your mind. He already does. And if I'm lying, if everything I've told you is manipulation, then I'm the biggest fool alive and you're the best liar I've ever met. Vincent touched her face. But I don't think you're lying. How can you be sure? I can't. That's the point. He kissed her again, softer this time. I'm choosing to trust you anyway. They left the office together that night. Not hiding it, not announcing it, just leaving. Vincent's driver took them to Alara's apartment, a modest one-bedroom in a neighborhood that was gentrifying but hadn't fully turned yet. This is where you live? Vincent looked around at the space, books everywhere, a desk covered in notes, walls bare except for a single photograph of a younger Alara with an older woman who had kind eyes. Not what you expected. I don't know what I expected. Something more expensive? More suited to a secret agent? More suited to someone who speaks 3 languages and can dismantle city council members. Alara laughed. I rent this place for $900 a month. I don't need expensive. I need functional. She poured wine, cheap red from a corner store. This is who I actually am, Vincent. No performance. No hidden agenda. Just someone trying to figure out what comes next. They talked until 3 in the morning. About everything and nothing. About the things they'd done and the things they wished they hadn't. About loneliness and connection and the strange mercy of being seen clearly by someone who didn't run away. Vincent fell asleep on her couch and woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Alara moving around the small kitchen. Morning, she said, handing him a cup. You snore, by the way. I do not. You absolutely do, like a freight train having an existential crisis. He laughed. Actually laughed. When was the last time that had happened? His phone buzzed. Derek. 17 missed calls. I should get that, Vincent said. Probably, he called back. Derek answered on the first ring. Where the hell have you been? Out. What's wrong? What's wrong is that Collins is dead. Found in his apartment this morning. Single gunshot wound to the head. Police are calling it suicide, but... Vincent's blood went cold. But what? But I've seen enough staged suicides to know one when I see the reports. Someone got to him. Derek's voice dropped. Someone who knew he was a problem and decided to solve it permanently. Vincent looked at Alara. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. I didn't do this, Vincent said. I know you didn't. You're not that stupid. But someone in your organization did. Someone who knew about Collins and took initiative. Derek paused. The question is who, and whether you're losing control of your own people. Vincent ended the call, set down his phone carefully. Collins is dead, he said. Alara went very still. How? Gunshot, staged as suicide. You didn't order it? No. Then who did? That's what I need to find out. Vincent stood. I have to go. This is going to get complicated. Vincent. Alara caught his arm. Be careful. If someone in your organization is making moves without your approval, that's dangerous. That's how empires collapse. I know. And if the police connect this to the warehouse search, I know. He kissed her forehead. I'll handle it. But as he left her apartment and stepped into the cold morning air, Vincent wondered if he actually could handle it. Wondered if he'd already lost control of something that was spiraling faster than he could track. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Another text. Collins was a loose end. You're welcome. But there are other loose ends. Some closer than you think. Vincent deleted the message with shaking hands. Someone was playing a game, someone who knew too much and moved too fast. And Vincent had no idea who it was or what they wanted. He just knew that everything was about to get much worse. The police came for Vincent 3 days after Collins died. Not to arrest him, not yet. Just to ask questions in that polite, persistent way that meant they were building something. Detective Chen sat across from him in an interrogation room that smelled like industrial cleaner and bad coffee, her expression professionally neutral. You fired Michael Collins 3 weeks ago, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, for financial irregularities. Must have made him angry. I imagine it did. I didn't ask about his feelings. Did he threaten you? Make any statements about retaliation? Vincent kept his face blank. No, he cleaned out his desk and left. I haven't spoken to him since. But you knew he was talking to people, building a case against you. I knew he was upset. Fired employees often are. Chen slid a photograph across the table. Collins dead, slumped in a chair with half his head gone. Vincent had seen worse, but he still felt his stomach turn. Gunshot wound to the right temple, Chen said. Gun in his hand. Door locked from the inside. Every indicator points to suicide except one. What's that? Collins was left-handed. The gun was in his right hand. Vincent said nothing. The smart move was silence. Always silence. We pulled his phone records, Chen continued. Lots of calls to a law firm specializing in whistleblower cases. Also several calls to our organized crime division. He was building something, Mr. Cade, something that involved you. I can't speak to what Collins was or wasn't doing. Can't or won't. Take your pick, detective. Chen leaned back. Here's what I think happened. I think Collins knew things that made him dangerous. I think someone in your organization decided he was a liability. I think that someone made it look like suicide but wasn't quite careful enough. That's an interesting theory. It's more than a theory. We're building a case, and when we do, everyone connected to Collins's death is going down. Doesn't matter if you gave the order directly. Conspiracy charges work the same way. Vincent met her eyes. Am I under arrest? Not yet. Then we're done here. He stood. Chen didn't stop him, but her voice followed him to the door. Mr. Cade, whatever you're involved in, whoever you're protecting, it's not worth it. Walk away while you still can. Vincent left without responding. Derek was waiting in the parking garage, leaning against the car with his arms crossed. How bad? Derek asked. They know Collins was murdered. They know he was building a case. They're connecting dots. Can they prove anything? Not yet. But Chen's good. She'll keep digging until she finds something. They drove in silence for several blocks before Derek spoke again. I've been looking into who might have ordered the hit on Collins. Narrowed it down to 3 people with means and motive, all of them in your inner circle. Who? Robert Chen. He had the most to lose if Collins talked about the Taiwan manufacturing deals. Patricia Gaines, she's got political exposure if Collins revealed the campaign finance routing. Or Volkov. Vincent's head snapped around. Volkov? He's not even directly connected to Collins. No, but he's connected to you. And he's the type who removes problems preemptively. Derek glanced at him. Also, he's been asking questions about Alara. Lots of questions. What kind of questions? Background, associations, whether you're sleeping with her? Derek's voice hardened. Which brings me to my next point. Are you sleeping with her? Vincent stared out the window at the city sliding past. That's not relevant. It's completely relevant. If you're compromised, I need to know. I'm not compromised. Boss, with respect, you're absolutely compromised. You're emotionally involved with someone we can't fully vet. Someone who appeared in your life right before things started falling apart. Alara didn't kill Collins. I'm not saying she did. I'm saying the timing is suspicious. I'm saying you're not thinking clearly. Derek pulled over, put the car in park. Look at me. Vincent did. I've worked for you for 9 years, Derek said. I've kept you alive, kept you free, kept your operation running smooth. I've never questioned your judgment before. But I'm questioning it now. You're taking risks that don't make sense. You're trusting someone you shouldn't, and it's going to cost you everything. You don't know her like I do. That's my point. You don't know her either. You just think you do because she's smart and pretty and makes you feel something you haven't felt in years. Derek's expression was almost pitying. You're human, boss. I get it. But being human in this business gets you killed or incarcerated, usually both. Vincent wanted to argue, wanted to defend Alara, defend himself, defend the connection that felt more real than anything in his carefully constructed empire. But Derek wasn't wrong. The timing was suspicious. The gaps in Alara's history were concerning. The fact that he trusted her despite all the red flags was dangerous. I'll be careful, Vincent said finally. Careful isn't enough. You need to be smart, and smart means distance until we figure out what's really happening. Vincent returned to the office to find Alara at her desk, working through a stack of contracts with her usual focused intensity. She looked up when he entered, and something in her expression shifted. "You were with the police," she said. "How did you have that look?" Tight jaw, shoulders tense. Also, Derek texted me to make sure you were okay. Derek texted you? We exchange information sometimes. He pretends to hate me, but he appreciates that I keep you organized. Alara set down her pen. What did they want? To connect me to Collins's death, to scare me into making a mistake. Did it work? No. She studied him. You're lying. Something scared you. Vincent closed the door to his office, gestured for her to follow. Once inside, he poured scotch he probably shouldn't drink and handed her a glass she didn't ask for. They know Collins was murdered, he said. They know someone made it look like suicide. They're building a conspiracy case. Can they prove you were involved? I wasn't involved. That's not what I asked. Vincent drank. The scotch burned. They can probably prove connection, association, motive. Whether that's enough for charges depends on what else they find. Alara was quiet for a moment. Then, you need to know something. His stomach dropped. What? I lied to you. Not about everything, but about something important. Vincent set down his glass very carefully. I'm listening. The NGO I worked for, the one in Southeast Asia. It wasn't just humanitarian work. Alara's voice was steady, but her hands weren't. We gathered intelligence, documented human rights abuses, but also other things. Trafficking networks, money laundering operations, corruption chains. We fed information to various agencies, CIA, Interpol, whoever was working the relevant cases. So you were intelligence. I was a contractor. There's a difference. I wasn't an agent. I didn't carry a badge. I was just someone who knew how to blend in and pay attention and report what I saw. And you didn't think this was relevant information to share? I didn't think it mattered. That was 6 years ago. I walked away, completely. No contact with handlers, no ongoing obligations. I came back to the States and tried to build a normal life. Vincent felt the world tilting. Why are you telling me this now? Because someone from that life contacted me yesterday. Someone I haven't heard from in 5 years. Alara pulled out her phone, showed him a message. They want to meet. They say it's about you. The message was brief. We need to talk about Vincent Cade. Tomorrow. Usual place. Come alone. Who is this? Vincent asked. Her name is Sarah. She was my handler during the NGO work. CIA, probably, though she never confirmed officially. Alara met his eyes. I told her no. Told her I'm not involved in that world anymore. But she's persistent. She called 3 times today. What does she want? I don't know. But the fact that she's reaching out about you specifically, that's not good. Vincent felt cold settle into his bones. You think she's investigating me? I think she might be. Or she might want me to investigate you. Either way, it's a problem. Why didn't you tell me about your background before? Because I wanted a normal life. Because I was tired of being someone's asset. Because I thought if I could just disappear into ordinary work, I could leave all of that behind. Alara's voice cracked slightly. And because I knew if you found out, you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me right now. How am I looking at you? Like a threat. Like someone you can't trust. Vincent wanted to deny it. Couldn't. Because she was right, everything had shifted. The woman he'd started falling for had just revealed she had exactly the kind of background that Derek and Marcus had warned him about. I need time, Vincent said. Time to think about this. I understand. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, everything you've told me might be a lie. Everything between us might be manipulation. It's not. How do I know that? Alara stood. You don't. You have to choose whether to believe me or not. Same way I have to choose whether to believe you when you say you didn't order Collins killed. She moved toward the door. For what it's worth, I do believe you. Even though it might be stupid, even though everyone would tell me I'm being played. Alara, I'll meet with Sarah, find out what she wants. If it's about you, you deserve to know. She paused at the door. And Vincent? Whatever happens next, I meant what I said, about this being real, about choosing to stay. She left. Vincent stood alone in his office, surrounded by the trappings of power that suddenly felt fragile as glass. His phone rang. Volkov. "We need to talk," the Russian said. "Private, tonight. I'm not in the mood for meetings. This isn't optional. I have information you need to hear." They met at a restaurant Volkov owned, upscale, exclusive, the kind of place where conversations disappeared into expensive wine and white tablecloths. Volkov was already there, occupying a corner booth like a monarch holding court. "Sit," he commanded. Vincent sat. Volkov poured wine without asking if Vincent wanted any. "Your secretary, Alara Voss. She's not what she appears to be." "I'm aware." "Are you? Are you aware she worked for intelligence agencies? Are you aware she's maintained contact with those agencies?" "She told me about her past. She said the contact was recent and unwanted." Volkov laughed, harsh, humorless. "And you believed her?" "Vincent, I thought you were smarter than this." "What do you know?" "I know she had a meeting yesterday afternoon, coffee shop in Georgetown. Lasted 45 minutes. Her companion was a woman matching the description of a known CIA case officer." Vincent's chest tightened. "You're having her followed?" "I'm protecting my interests, which are connected to yours, whether you like it or not." Volkov leaned forward. "She's playing you, building a case, gathering evidence, getting close enough to see everything. And you're letting her because you're thinking with your cock instead of your brain." "She told me about the contact. She's going to meet with them to find out what they want. Or she's going to meet with them to report what she's learned. Vincent, this is basic tradecraft. She gains your trust, gets access, feeds information back to her handlers. They build a case. When they have enough, they come for you, and everyone connected to you." "I don't believe that." "Then you're a fool." Volkov's voice went cold. "I'm giving you a choice. Get rid of her, or I will. Permanently." Vincent stood so fast the chair scraped. "You threaten her. You threaten me. I'm trying to save you from yourself. By threatening to kill someone I care about? By removing a threat before it destroys us all." Volkov remained seated, calm, implacable. "You have 48 hours. Either she disappears from your life or she disappears permanently. Your choice." Vincent left before he did something that would start a war he couldn't win, drove aimlessly through the city, trying to think through the fog of anger and fear. His phone buzzed continuously. Derek, Marcus, others wanting updates, wanting decisions, wanting him to be the person who always had answers. He ignored them all and drove to Alara's apartment. She answered the door in sweatpants and an old Georgetown t-shirt, hair wet from a shower. Her face showed surprise, then concern. "Vincent, what happened?" "Volkov knows about your background. He knows about the meeting with Sarah. He's given me 48 hours to cut you loose, or he'll handle it himself." Alara went pale. "How does he know about Sarah?" "He's had you followed. Probably has had you followed since the dinner." Vincent stepped inside, closed the door. "Tell me the truth. All of it. Right now. Are you building a case against me?" "No." "Are you reporting to anyone about my operations?" "No." "Then why did you meet with Sarah yesterday? You said she called. You said you told her no." Alara's expression crumbled. "She showed up at my apartment. I couldn't avoid her. We talked for 10 minutes, maybe 15. She wanted me to inform on you, offered money, immunity, protection. I told her I wasn't interested, that I'd left that life behind. And she just accepted that? No. She said I was making a mistake, that you were going down eventually and I should choose the winning side. Then she left." Alara's voice was shaking now. "I was going to tell you, I needed to figure out how without making everything worse." Vincent wanted to believe her, wanted it so badly his chest ached, but doubt was a poison that spread through everything. "Volkov will kill you," he said. "If I don't end this, he'll do it himself, and I can't protect you from him." "Then what do you want me to do?" "Disappear. Take money, change your name, start over somewhere he can't find you." "I don't want to run. You don't have a choice." "Yes, I do. I choose to stay." Alara moved closer. "I choose you, even if it's stupid, even if it gets me killed." "Why? For what? This isn't some romantic story." This is real life with real consequences. Because for the first time in my life, someone sees me completely and doesn't run away. Because you're honest about what you are. Because I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not. She touched his face. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm asking you to trust me. Vincent pulled her close, buried his face in her wet hair. She smelled like cheap shampoo and something else. Something that felt like home, even though he'd never had one. I can't lose you, he said. You won't. You don't know that. Neither do you. That's what trust means. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other like they could stop the world from breaking apart through sheer force of will. Vincent's phone rang. Derek. He almost didn't answer, but Derek didn't call unless it was important. What? I found something about Alara. You need to hear this. Can it wait? No. Derek's voice was urgent. I cracked into some sealed federal databases, found a file on Alara Voss from 6 years ago. She wasn't just a contractor. She was a witness in a federal prosecution, testified against a trafficking network she'd infiltrated during the NGO work. Her testimony put 12 people in prison. So the trafficking network had connections to organized crime, including associates of Anton Volkov. Vincent's blood went cold. What? Volkov's cousin. Did 15 years because of evidence Alara gathered. Got out 6 months ago. Derek paused. Boss, Volkov doesn't just want her gone because she's a security risk. He wants her dead for revenge. Vincent looked at Alara. She was watching him, eyes wide, clearly hearing enough of the conversation to understand. Are you sure? Vincent asked. Positive. I've got the case files. It's all there. Vincent hung up. Told Alara what Derek had found. She sat down heavily on the couch. I didn't know. I testified against so many networks. I didn't track all the connections. Didn't know Volkov had family involved. That doesn't matter. What matters is he wants you dead, and I can't protect you from him without starting a war that destroys everything. Then start the war. Alara, I'm serious. If the choice is between letting him kill me or fighting back, then fight back. Her eyes were fierce. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I've spent my whole life being invisible, being careful, being whatever people needed me to be. I'm done with that. You'll die. Maybe, but I'll die as myself. Not as someone's asset or someone's victim. Vincent felt something shift inside him, some final resistance breaking. She was right. They were both right. Running solved nothing. Hiding solved nothing. The only way out was through. Okay, he said. Okay, we do this together, but we do it smart. What's the plan? Vincent pulled out his phone, started making calls. First to Derek, get every piece of evidence on Volkov's cousin, every connection between the trafficking case and current operations. Then to Marcus, arrange a meeting of all the major partners, force the issue into the open. Then to Patricia, prepare legal defenses, backup plans, exit strategies. By midnight, the pieces were moving. By morning, the war would begin. Alara watched him work with something like awe. You're really going to burn it all down? Not all of it, just the parts that need burning. Vincent looked at her. But I need you to do something for me. What? Meet with Sarah. Tell her everything about Volkov, the trafficking connection, the threat against you, all of it. Get the federal government interested in him instead of me. That's using them. Yes. Is that a problem? Alara smiled, sharp, fierce, nothing like the quiet secretary she'd pretended to be. Not at all. The meeting happened the next morning at the same coffee shop where Sarah had found Alara before. Alara wore a wire, not for evidence, but so Vincent could hear everything in real time from Derek's surveillance van parked 2 blocks away. Sarah arrived exactly on time. 50s, professional, the kind of person who could disappear into any crowd. You came, Sarah said, sitting down. I came, but not for the reasons you think. Alara's voice was steady through the earpiece. I'm not here to inform on Vincent Cade. I'm here to give you something better. What could be better than the biggest organized crime case in the region? Anton Volkov, Russian mob connections, trafficking networks spanning 3 countries, and a vendetta against me because I helped put his cousin in prison 6 years ago. Through the earpiece, Vincent heard Sarah's sharp intake of breath. Volkov threatened you? He's given Vincent 48 hours to get rid of me. After that, he'll do it himself. Alara leaned forward. I can give you everything. His operations, his connections, his vulnerabilities. But you have to move fast and you have to protect Vincent in the process. Why would we protect Cade? Because he's not your biggest problem. Volkov is. And because if you take down Vincent's entire operation, you create a power vacuum that Volkov will fill. Better the devil, you know. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. You're asking us to make a deal. Immunity for Cade in exchange for Volkov. I'm asking you to be smart. Vincent's operations are gray area. Legally questionable, but mostly nonviolent. Volkov is a legitimate monster. Take your pick. I need to make some calls. You have 24 hours. After that, people start dying. Probably starting with me. Vincent listened to the conversation end, listened to Alara walk away, listened to Derek muttering about whether this was brilliant or insane. Both, Vincent said. It's both. That night, Sarah called back. The federal government was interested, very interested. They wanted Volkov more than they wanted Vincent. But there would be conditions, cooperation, transparency, and Vincent would need to clean up the truly illegal parts of his operation. Can you live with that? Alara asked. They were back in his office, the city lights glittering below like scattered diamonds. Vincent thought about everything he'd built, everything he'd compromised to get here, everything he'd become. I don't know, he said honestly, but I'm willing to find out. Alara kissed him. That's all I'm asking. The next morning, Vincent called a meeting of his partners. They gathered in the same private club where Marcus had warned him about Alara, all of them except Volkov, who hadn't been invited. We have a problem, Vincent announced. Anton Volkov has become a liability. He's making threats, taking initiative without approval, endangering all of us with his personal vendettas. What are you proposing? Marcus asked carefully. I'm proposing we cut him loose, completely. Sever all business ties, block him from our networks, make it clear he's on his own. He won't accept that, Patricia said. He'll retaliate. Let him try. The federal government is already building a case against him. They have evidence, testimony, connections to trafficking networks. He's going down. Question is whether we go down with him or distance ourselves now. Vieri leaned forward. You're working with the feds? I'm making sure we survive. That's what I do. Vincent looked around the table. We've built something here. Something that works. Volkov threatens that. So we remove him before he removes us. The vote was quick. Unanimous. Even Marcus, who'd warned Vincent about trust, agreed that Volkov had become too dangerous. Vincent called Derek. It's done. Volkov's out. And when he finds out, he'll come for me. For us. But we'll be ready. Except they weren't. Not really. Volkov moved faster than anyone expected. That evening, as Vincent was leaving the office with Alara, Derek's voice crackled through his earpiece. We have movement. 3 vehicles, armed men. They're coming for you. Vincent grabbed Alara's hand. Run. They didn't make it to the elevator before the shooting started. Glass exploded inward as bullets tore through the office windows. Vincent threw Alara to the floor, his body covering hers as the world erupted into chaos. The sound was deafening, gunfire, shattering glass, Derek's voice screaming through the earpiece to get down, stay down. Fire escape, Vincent gasped, pulling Alara toward the back of the office. Move. They crawled across broken glass and splintered wood. Vincent's shoulder burned where something had grazed him, bullet or shrapnel, he couldn't tell. Behind them, the main office door exploded open, shouting in Russian. Footsteps. Derek appeared at the fire escape door, gun drawn. Go! I'll hold them. Derek! Go! Vincent didn't argue. He pushed Alara through the door onto the metal fire escape. The night air was cold and sharp. Below, the alley stretched dark and narrow. Above, more gunfire. Derek was buying them seconds they couldn't afford to waste. They ran down the metal stairs, Alara's heels clanging against each step until she kicked them off and kept running barefoot. Vincent's lungs burned. His shoulders screamed. None of it mattered. They hit the alley just as a black SUV screeched around the corner, headlights blinding. Vincent pushed Alara behind a dumpster, fumbling for the gun Derek had given him months ago. the one he'd never thought he'd actually need. The SUV doors opened. 3 men got out. Vincent recognized one of them, Dmitri, Volkov's personal enforcer. Big, efficient, the kind of man who killed without emotion or hesitation. "Mr. Cade," Dmitri called out in heavily accented English. "Mr. Volkov wishes to speak with you. Come peacefully. This ends better for everyone." Vincent pulled Ilara closer. Her breath was ragged against his neck. "What do we do?" she whispered. "We don't die." Not the most inspiring answer, but it was all he had. "Cade," Dmitri moved closer. "Don't make this difficult. You know how this works. Business is business." Vincent stepped out from behind the dumpster, hands visible but not raised. "Tell Volkov if he wants to talk, we can talk, like civilized people." Dmitri laughed. "You cut him out, turned his partners against him, called federal attention to his operations. You think he wants conversation?" "I think he wants revenge. But revenge is expensive. Bodies draw attention. Federal attention you can't afford." "We're past that now." Dmitri raised his gun. "The woman. Give her to us. You can walk away. Live to rebuild. Mr. Volkov is reasonable." "No." "Vincent, think about this." "I said no." Dmitri's expression hardened. "Then you both die." The gunshot came from above. Dmitri went down, a red flower blooming on his chest. His men spun, firing wildly at the rooftop where Derek had repositioned. In the chaos, Vincent grabbed Ilara's hand and ran. They made it 2 blocks before his legs gave out. Too much adrenaline, too much blood loss from the shoulder wound he'd been ignoring. Vincent collapsed against a brick wall, vision graying at the edges. "Stay with me." Ilara's hands were on his face, his shoulder, trying to staunch bleeding he couldn't feel anymore. "Vincent, stay with me. Go," he managed. "Run, they're coming. Not without you." "Ilara..." "Shut up. I'm not leaving you." She pulled out her phone, dialed. "Sarah, it's me. I need extraction. Now. We're at..." She looked around frantically. "Corner of 5th and Brennan. Vincent's hit. We have maybe 2 minutes before Volkov's people find us." Vincent couldn't hear the response. The world was getting fuzzy and strange. He thought about how stupid this was, how he'd survived 9 years of careful planning and strategic positioning only to get shot in an alley protecting someone he'd known for less than 2 months. Worth it, though. Somehow worth it. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "They're coming," Ilara said. "Federal agents. Sarah's sending them. Just hold on." "Tell me something," Vincent said. His voice sounded far away. "Something true." "What?" "Anything. Just something that's not a lie." Ilara's eyes were wet. When had she started crying? "I love you. I know it's insane. I know it's too fast and too stupid, and we're probably both going to die. But I love you." Vincent laughed, tasted blood. "Worst timing ever. I know. I love you too, for the record." "I know." The federal agents arrived before Volkov's men did. Tactical teams in body armor, moving with military precision. They secured the scene, called for an ambulance, started asking questions that Vincent was too tired to answer. Sarah appeared, crouched down next to Ilara. "You okay?" "He needs a hospital." "Already called. EMTs are 2 minutes out." Sarah looked at Vincent. "Mr. Cade, you're under federal protection now. That means you cooperate with everything we ask. Understand?" Vincent nodded, or tried to. Everything was spinning. "He needs a hospital," Ilara repeated, her voice breaking. "Please." The EMTs loaded Vincent into an ambulance. Ilara climbed in with him despite the paramedics' protests. She held his hand the entire ride, whispering things he couldn't quite hear but felt in his bones. He woke up in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and institutional cafeteria food. Federal agents stood outside his door. Derek sat in a chair by the window, looking exhausted and alive and whole. "Welcome back," Derek said. "You've been out for 14 hours. Vincent's throat was dry. "Ilara?" "Safe," giving her statement to the feds. "She's been here the whole time, barely left your side." Derek stood, moved closer. "We won, kind of." "Explain, kind of." "Volkov's in custody. Federal agents raided his properties, froze his assets, arrested half his organization. The shooting at the office gave them probable cause for everything. Sarah's team moved fast. Derek paused. But there's a price. Always is. You have to cooperate. Fully. That means opening your books, explaining every gray area operation, helping them dismantle the parts of your empire that cross legal lines. Derek's expression was serious. You're getting immunity, but you're also getting supervision, federal oversight on all your business operations for the next 5 years. Any violation, the deal's off, and you're prosecuted for everything. Vincent closed his eyes. 5 years of federal babysitters watching every move. 5 years of operating in full daylight instead of comfortable shadow. It felt like death and rebirth at the same time. What about the others? Marcus, Patricia, the rest? Same deal. Everyone cooperates or everyone goes down. Marcus isn't happy, but he's agreeing. Patricia's already working with their lawyers. Vieri's retired, effective immediately. Derek sat back down. It's over, boss. The whole thing. Everything you built. It's being dismantled piece by piece. And Alara? She's the reason you're getting any deal at all. Her testimony about Volkov, her cooperation, her willingness to burn every bridge she had with the intelligence community to protect you, that bought leverage. Derek's voice softened. She sacrificed everything for you. Career, credibility, any chance of working in that world again. The feds consider her compromised now, emotionally involved. She's done. The door opened. Alara walked in, looking exhausted and beautiful and real. Derek stood, gave Vincent a meaningful look, and left. Alara sat in the chair Derek had vacated. You're awake. So are you. Derek says you haven't slept. Couldn't. Kept thinking you might die while I wasn't paying attention. She reached for his hand. How do you feel? Like I got shot and lived. You? Like I just destroyed my entire career and don't regret it at all. Vincent squeezed her hand. Derek told me. What you gave up. What you sacrificed. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was a choice. Alara's voice was steady. I spent years being invisible, being useful, being whatever people needed me to be. I'm done with that. I choose you. I choose this. Whatever this is. It's messy and complicated and probably still dangerous. I know. I'm going to be under federal supervision for 5 years. Everything I do will be watched and scrutinized. My business empire is being dismantled. I'm going to have to go legitimate, which means probably losing money and influence and most of what made me powerful. I know that too. And you still want this? Alara smiled, tired and genuine and completely unguarded. I still want this, do you? Vincent pulled her closer, kissed her despite the pain in his shoulder and the monitors beeping and the federal agent standing outside his door. Yeah, I do. Recovery took 3 weeks. Physical therapy for his shoulder, endless debriefings with federal prosecutors, meetings with accountants and lawyers as they untangled which parts of his empire could be salvaged and which parts had to die. Marcus visited once, looking older and more tired than Vincent had ever seen him. This is it then, Marcus said. End of an era. Looks like it. You're really going straight? Full legitimate? Don't have much choice. Federal oversight means no more gray areas. Everything has to be above board. Marcus shook his head. Never thought I'd see the day. Vincent Cade, respectable businessman. You're one to talk. Heard you're cooperating fully, even volunteering information they didn't ask for. I'm 73 years old. I don't have the energy for prison. Marcus pulled out a cigar, didn't light it. Besides, maybe it's time. We had a good run, built something. Now it's time to let it go before it kills us. You sound almost philosophical. I sound old. There's a difference. Marcus stood. Take care of yourself. And that woman of yours, she's a hell of a lot tougher than she looks. I know. Patricia came next, all business and legal documents. I've restructured everything we can legally restructure. The construction business is clean. We're keeping that. Port operations are going to the city under a new management contract. The rest, she shrugged. The rest doesn't exist anymore. What about you? I'm staying. Someone needs to make sure you don't accidentally commit a felony while learning to operate in daylight. She almost smiled. Besides, legitimate business can be interesting too. Different challenges. Vieri sent a letter instead of visiting. It was short. Congratulations on your survival. Enjoy your retirement. I certainly plan to enjoy mine. By the fourth week, Vincent was cleared to leave the hospital. Elara picked him up in a car that wasn't bulletproof, wasn't armored, was just a normal sedan she'd apparently bought with her own money. Where are we going? Vincent asked. Your choice. Your penthouse has been cleared by the feds, or we could go to my apartment, or we could go somewhere completely new. Vincent thought about the penthouse. 43 floors of expensive isolation. Thought about everything that building represented, everything he was leaving behind. Somewhere new, he said. They drove to a neighborhood Vincent had never visited, middle class, tree-lined, the kind of place where kids played in yards and people actually knew their neighbors. Elara pulled up to a small house with a for sale sign. What's this? Vincent asked. A possibility. 2 bedrooms, actual yard, 15-minute commute to the new office Patricia's setting up. Elara turned off the engine. I know it's not what you're used to. It's smaller, cheaper, probably needs work, but it's real. No pretense, no performance. Just a house. Vincent looked at the house, tried to imagine himself living there, coming home to something normal, building something that didn't require shadows or secrets or careful positioning. Can we afford it? Elara laughed. Vincent, even with the asset forfeiture and fines, you're still worth more than most people make in several lifetimes. Yes, we can afford it. We? If you want. If this is moving too fast, I understand. Vincent kissed her. Show me the inside. The house was empty, sunlit, impossibly ordinary. Hardwood floors that creaked, kitchen that needed updating, a backyard with an actual tree. Vincent walked through each room, feeling like he was touring someone else's life. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Normal, legitimate, all of it. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. What if I'm terrible at it? Then you'll be terrible at it. But you'll be terrible at it honestly. Elara moved to stand beside him at the window overlooking the backyard. You spent 9 years building an empire on careful deception. Maybe the next 9 years can be about building something on truth. That sounds exhausting. Probably will be. Vincent put his arm around her, feeling the solid reality of her against him. Okay, let's do it. Let's be terrible at normal together. They bought the house, moved in with almost nothing because most of Vincent's possessions had been seized or sold to pay fines and restitution. Elara contributed her books and her desk and her one photograph of the woman with kind eyes who'd been her foster mother for 3 years before the system moved her again. Derek helped them move, complaining the entire time about civilian life and how boring legitimate business was going to be. You're staying? Vincent asked, surprised. Someone needs to keep you alive. Besides, Patricia's paying well for security consulting. Turns out keeping executives safe from corporate espionage is almost as interesting as keeping crime bosses safe from federal prosecution. I'm not a crime boss anymore. No, now you're just a boss. Somehow that's weirder. The new business was strange. Construction projects that actually followed regulations. Union negotiations that happened in boardrooms instead of backrooms. Contracts that got signed in daylight by people using their real names. Vincent felt exposed and uncertain, and occasionally terrified that he'd forgotten how to operate without shadows. But Elara was there. Patient when he struggled, honest when he screwed up, relentless about keeping him grounded in reality instead of strategy. You can't manipulate your way through a zoning hearing, she said one evening after a particularly frustrating day. You actually have to follow the rules like everyone else. The rules are stupid. The rules are the rules. That's the price of legitimate. I hate it. Liar. You love it. You love the challenge of succeeding without taking shortcuts. Vincent wanted to argue. Couldn't, because she was right. There was something satisfying about winning fair, about building something that didn't require lies or leverage or carefully maintained secrets. 6 months passed. Then a year. Vincent's shoulder healed. The federal oversight became routine instead of oppressive. The business grew, slower than before, cleaner than before. But it grew. Elara took a job teaching international relations at a local university. She was brilliant at it, challenging students, breaking down complex systems, showing them how power actually worked versus how textbooks claimed it worked. You're good at this, Vincent said one evening, reading one of her student evaluations. They love you. They love that I don't bullshit them. I tell them the truth. Policy is about power, and power is about relationships and leverage and understanding what people actually want versus what they say they want. She smiled. Turns out working for a crime boss was excellent preparation for teaching political science. Former crime boss. Right, former. They got engaged on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic, just Vincent asking over dinner at the Vietnamese restaurant where they'd had their first real conversation. Marry me, he said. Ilara looked up from her foe. That's not a question. Marry me? Still not very romantic. Ilara Voss, will you marry me and keep calling me out on my bullshit for the rest of our lives? That's better? She smiled. Yes. The wedding was small. Derek stood as best man. Patricia handled logistics with military precision. Marcus sent a gift, expensive scotch and a note that said, "Congratulations on your continued survival and questionable decision-making." Sarah came too, which surprised everyone, including Ilara. Didn't think you'd show, Ilara said when Sarah arrived. Wouldn't miss it. Besides, I wanted to see if you actually went through with it, going fully civilian for a man you barely know. Sarah smiled. Turns out you did. Respect. He's not barely known anymore. No, I suppose not. Sarah's expression turned serious. For what it's worth, you made the right call. Volkov got 30 years. His entire network is dismantled. You saved lives by choosing to fight instead of run. I didn't do it to save lives. I did it because I was tired of being invisible. Even better reason. The ceremony happened in the backyard of their small house under the actual tree that Vincent still couldn't quite believe he owned. Ilara wore a simple dress. Vincent wore a suit that cost a fraction of what his old suits had cost and somehow felt more real. They promised each other honesty, partnership, the willingness to keep choosing each other even when it was difficult or stupid or completely insane. I love you, Vincent said, meaning it more than he'd meant anything. I love you too, Ilara replied, even though you snore like a freight train having an existential crisis. Everyone laughed. Vincent kissed his wife and felt something settle into place that had been off balance his entire life. 2 years later, sitting in his modest office reviewing construction permits and zoning applications, Vincent got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Cade? Unfamiliar voice, young, nervous. Speaking. My name is Jordan Cross. I'm a reporter working on a story about corporate reform and business ethics. I'd like to interview you about your transition from your previous operations to your current legitimate business. Vincent almost laughed. You want to interview me about going straight? In a manner of speaking, you're something of a case study, someone who operated in gray areas for years, then successfully transitioned to full compliance after federal intervention. I think your story could be valuable for understanding how business reform actually works. I'm not sure I'm the inspiration you're looking for. I'm not looking for inspiration. I'm looking for truth, the actual process, the challenges, the reality of changing how you operate. Jordan paused. I've done my research, Mr. Cade. I know what you were. I'm interested in what you are now. Vincent looked around his office. Modest furniture. Windows that overlooked a parking lot instead of the city skyline. Files full of permits and contracts and legitimate business that made less money but let him sleep at night. All right, he said. I'll talk to you, but I'm not glossing over anything. You want truth? You get truth. All of it. That's all I'm asking for. The interview happened the following week. Jordan Cross was 26, idealistic in that way young reporters were before the world beat it out of them, and surprisingly sharp. So, Jordan began, recorder running, what made you decide to go legitimate? I got shot protecting someone I loved and realized power built on secrets eventually collapses under its own weight. Jordan blinked. That's honest. You said you wanted truth. I did. I do. Jordan recovered. Tell me about the transition. How do you go from operating in shadows to operating in daylight? Vincent talked for 2 hours about the mistakes he'd made, the compromises that had seemed necessary at the time and haunted him now, The difficulty of learning to succeed without manipulation or leverage. The strange freedom of not having to maintain appearances or manage secrets. Do you regret it? Jordan asked. The previous life? Every day? And never. Vincent leaned back in his chair. I regret what it cost. The relationships I destroyed. The trust I violated. The person I became. But I don't regret surviving. And I don't regret what it taught me about how power actually works. Which is? Power isn't about control. It's about connection. Real connection. The kind built on honesty instead of manipulation. Vincent smiled. Took me 40 years and a near-death experience to learn that, but better late than never. The article ran 3 months later. Vincent Cade, from criminal enterprise to corporate citizen. It was fair, honest, didn't glamorize his past or oversell his redemption, just told the truth about someone trying to build something real after years of building illusions. Elora read it over a breakfast, then looked at him over her coffee cup. You're famous now. Respectable even. Terrifying, isn't it? Completely. She smiled. I'm proud of you. For what? Surviving? Not going to prison? For choosing truth over power. For being willing to start over. For building something with me instead of trying to control everything alone. Vincent reached across the table, took her hand. Best decision I ever made. Which one? Going legitimate or marrying me? Yes. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee in their small kitchen, in their small house, in their small life that felt larger and more real than anything Vincent had built before. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Deals getting made, power changing hands, people building empires on foundations of secrets and leverage and careful deception. Vincent didn't miss it. Or rather, he missed it the way you miss a fever dream, grateful it's over, unable to imagine going back. His phone buzzed. Derek, texting about a security consultation for a new client. Patricia, asking about the quarterly projections. Marcus, sending a photo of himself on a beach somewhere tropical with a cigar and a drink and a smile that looked genuinely peaceful. Normal problems, normal life, normal everything. Vincent Cade had spent 9 years being extraordinary in all the worst ways. Turns out ordinary was harder and better, and more worth fighting for than he'd ever imagined. Elora squeezed his hand. What are you thinking about? How strange it is that the most powerful thing I ever did was stop trying to have power. That's almost philosophical. Don't tell Derek. He'll never let me hear the end of it. She laughed, and Vincent thought about how that sound, genuine, unguarded, completely real, was worth more than every empire he'd ever built or could ever build. They finished their coffee, got ready for work, kissed goodbye like normal people in normal marriages living normal lives. And for the first time in his entire existence, Vincent Cade was exactly where he wanted to be. Not invisible, not alone, not performing, just real, just human, just enough.